Expected points, clean sheet odds, who is the best captain, and who are the best players to buy. I know it's a little bit early, but this video has everything you need to know ahead of Game Week 4. Alright, so I'm going to start the video by talking about the top players for expected points by position. And this expected points data comes from Fantasy Football Hub. If you want to see it for yourself, you can sign up to Fantasy Football Hub using the link in the description. I actually get you 50% off as well. So what's not to like? You get to see all the data for all of the game weeks of the season, whatever fixture each player has as expected points data for you to look at. So goalkeepers then, and Ederson is the top goalkeeper for expected points, followed by Martinez, Alisson, Verbruggen of Brighton, who I think could be quite an interesting option, especially considering the quality of Brighton's fixtures coming up. He's low owned, 0.9%. Have a feeling he's going to do well. And the Brighton manager has said that Verbruggen, is the first choice Brighton goalkeeper. So there's should be no rotation regularly week on week with Steele. Because obviously under De Zerbi last season, Steele played 1 week, Verbruggen played the other week. He rotated his goalkeepers. He's a crazy manager that did that. David Raya's got Tottenham away, but he's still relatively, high up, 3.9 expected points. Leno of Fulham, West Ham at home, 3.8, and Dean Henderson also on 3.8. Defenders then, and we tend to see a bit of grouping depending on teams' likelihood to keep clean sheets. So we've got Liverpool, two Liverpool fullbacks leading the way. Obviously, Liverpool with Virgil on there as well, back to keep a clean sheet against Nottingham Forest at home. Remembering, of course, they've kept 3 clean sheets in 3 games so far in the Premier League. They haven't conceded a goal. Robertson and Trent both looking really good from an attacking perspective. And it's interesting, actually, to see, despite Trent having a few chances against Man United, obviously putting the ball in the back of there only to be disallowed, Robertson is actually leading Trent in terms of expected points. I'll talk a little bit more about Robertson later on in the video, but I would actually question at the moment, is Robertson a better option than Trent? With Trent throwing a little bit of a hissy fit when he's been subbed a couple of times, Robertson seems to maybe be a bit more of a slot favourite than Trent. And he's taken more corners than Trent is as well. So, yeah, just something to bear in mind. I think they're both as good as each other, basically. But saving $1 million and going for Robertson, I think, could be a nice way to play it. Then you got Guardiola, Ruben Diaz and Akanji, the leading Man City defenders. I would probably put Rico Lewis on there as well, depending on how he gets on for England. If he picks up an injury during international break, he's not going to play in Game Week 4. But with the way he has been playing for Man City, I do feel like Rico Lewis's spot in the team is still relatively safe. But of course, Walker's got a 2-week rest because he didn't get picked for England. Champions League's coming up. Pep even said himself that, the first 3 game weeks of the season were kind of a pre-season for Man City. So that obviously raises some question marks as to who's going to start in that Man City defence, right? I do think if I were to name one player who, despite not being as attacking as we thought he would be at the start of the season, I would say Guardiola is probably the most nailed on Man City defender right now. And then you got Virgil van Dijk and Lewis Dunk as the other top 2 defenders. On to midfielders then. Mo Salah leads the way. I mean, no surprise really. I think owners of Mo Salah and Erling Haaland have kind of had the luck of the draw, I guess, at the start of the season. He is the top midfielder, Nottingham Forest at home. A game I would fully expect Liverpool to win. And, well, the fact he's predicted to get 8.2 expected points suggests he's heavily back to get an attack and return. Eberechi Eze, thankfully, of course, scored a goal in Game Week 3, rewarding owners with their patience. And a lot of people sold Eze. He's gone down to 6.9 million, as you can see there, and he scored last week and is the second top midfielder for expected points for Game Week 4. Saka, Cole Palmer up there as well, respective penalty takers for both of their teams. I really like both of these guys. It's a hard one to get both of them in your team, obviously alongside Salah and Haaland. Even one of them in your team alongside Salah and Haaland, right? That's the difficulty of FPL this season, is fitting all of those good premium players into your team. Kevin De Bruyne, who's had a relatively, I would say, bright start to the season, looks to be nailed on in that Man City lineup at the moment. But with the Champions League being mixed in, the fact that he has been injury prone in previous seasons, right? I would question what his minutes look like with all of that Champions League football mixed in. Same with Diogo Jota. I think he's probably fairly safe from rotation. Slot is certainly preferring him as that number 9 for Liverpool, but he is a relatively injury-prone player. He has gotten through these first 3 fixtures without an injury, to be fair, but I just think he always seems to pick up a relatively long-term injury pretty much every season. And then Heung-min Son, despite a difficult fixture against Arsenal at home, is still one of the top midfielders with 5.5 expected points. Final list of players then, we got the forwards, and I can't imagine you're too surprised to see Erling Haaland as the number one. 8.7 expected points against Brentford. And then we got Isak, who again, similar to Eze, rewarded owners with their patience with a goal in game week 3. He's got Wolves away. I'd say Wolves are looking like one of the poorer teams in the league right now. I think he could do really well in that one. Kai Havertz, who, I've got to be honest, I completely ignored at the start of the season, but he looks to have nailed down that number 9 spot now for Arsenal. Been playing really well. Tottenham are not the best team defensively. I do feel like Arsenal and he can score in that one. João Pedro, rewarding owners so far, gone up now to 5.7 million. I do really like him as an option, but I like him as an option when he plays. But I just have a feeling there's going to be times this season where he's benched and rotated. I do like him as an option. And to be honest, at 5.7 million, you're probably going to expect him to miss some games, right? And still get value out of him. But yeah, just one thing to bear in mind about his minutes. Ollie Watkins has withdrawn from the England squad. Forgot to say that actually about Cole Palmer as well. He's withdrawn from the England team too. So, you know, does that mean he's injured? I think he'll probably be fit for game week 4, to be honest. But yeah, just one thing to bear in mind. It's one of those international break injuries, in inverted commas, I think. Chris Wood, Liverpool away, still expected to do well. Obviously, having a really bright start to this season. And also, Nicholas Jackson has had a decent start to the season as well. It's gone up to 7.6 million and has Bournemouth away, 4.9 predicted points for him. So yeah, those are your top forwards. Clean sheet odds then. I've got this data from Drafthound. Again, there's a link to sign up and visit Drafthound in the description. We've got 2 teams, 50% or above to keep a clean sheet in game week 4. That being Liverpool against Nottingham Forest and Man City against Brentford. Bearing in mind, when we looked at the expected points for defenders, I would imagine the Fantasy Football Hub kind of model had Man City slightly higher to keep a clean sheet. But based on the performance so far this season, I personally back this model. I think, you know, Liverpool slightly better, I would say, in terms of odds to keep a clean sheet, given they've not conceded a goal yet this season. So yeah, Man City, Liverpool looking good. Brighton 45%, Aston Villa 44%, Crystal Palace on 40%, and then Man United on 36%. Usually, any teams below sort of 30% to keep a clean sheet, I'd be hesitant starting players from. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of the rule I would apply to these clean sheet odds. You can see the rest of the teams there with Nottingham Forest and Brentford in single digits to keep a clean sheet there. 8 for Nottingham Forest and 7 for Brentford. But yeah, always interesting to look at the clean sheet odds. And I would suggest, unless you've got a super attacking defender, I would usually start my defenders based upon their clean sheet odds. Quick look at captaincy then. So what I've done here quite simply is taken the top, well in this case 6 players from the Fantasy Football Hub model for expected points, just to compare and have a look. For me though, it's not really hard this week. Haaland is the best captain in my opinion, but I just wanted to show that it's not all that different between Haaland and Salah in terms of captaincy. You know, a lot of people may not have Haaland that are watching this video, or may not have Salah that are watching this video. You know, I wouldn't be too worried about having to captain one or the other, to be honest. 8.7 expected points for Haaland and 8.2 for Salah. I just thought I'd bring in a couple extra sources of expected points data as well. 10.6 is, I think, the highest number I've ever seen on Drafthound for expected points in a single game week. And that's Haaland in game week 4. 10.6 expected points against Brentford and 9.4 for Mo Salah. I mean, 2 of these guys absolutely flying ahead of the rest of the players. And again, you know, there's not a whole lot there between them, only like 1 point. So again, if you're not a Haaland owner and you'd have to break your team to bring him in to captain him, he's got Arsenal in game week 5. You know, based on this, I wouldn't be too scared if I still had to captain Salah. It's obviously not ideal, but there's not going to be much between them, well, at least according to the expected points data. Luis Diaz had a really strong start to the season. Quite nice to see him in the conversation. Then you've got Palmer and Saka up there as well. And then a final sort of data source for expected points, we've got FPL Review. Haaland, Salah, Eze, De Bruyne, and interestingly, Bruno Fernandes are the top 5 players for expected points according to FPL Review. But in terms of the outright outstanding captain, all 3 sources of expected points data I've showed, so Fantasy Football Hub, Haaland, Drafthound, Haaland, FPL Review, they all have Haaland as the best captain for Game Week 4. And to end the video, I just wanted to talk about some players that, well, quite like the look of and would be interested in buying, basically. I spoke about João Pedro being a good option. And don't get me wrong, I think he is. But there's always a risk that he is going to get benched at some point in the season. And a player that I don't think has much risk of being benched is Wissa of Brentford. Played 29 games last season, 12 goals, 4 assists, 0.52 expected returns per 90. So I'd say that's a very respectable total last season for a striker of his price. And he's gotten off to a pretty much insane start this season. 3 games, well, 3 starts, 2 goals, 1 assist, 0.87 expected returns per 90. That's a really high level of performance from him. Unfortunately, though, for game week 4, he's got Man City. So that would potentially put me off. But I really like him as an option, particularly even from game week 5 when he's got Tottenham. And I've taken some fixtures there for Brentford from game week 6 onwards. West Ham, Wolves, Man United, Ipswich, Fulham, Bournemouth, Everton, Leicester, and then Tottenham in game week 5. Those are fixtures where I could see Brentford scoring in all of them, right? And yeah, I think Wissa's nailed on to start. 6.1 million, not too dissimilar to what João Pedro's priced up as. I would definitely consider him as an option if you're looking for a cheap striker. And he won't necessarily, he won't take the penalties of Brentford. That's Mbumo's job, who I might talk about in a second. But from open play, the non-penalty expected goals, expected assist data, Wissa puts up better numbers in that regard than Mbumo does. So just one thing to bear in mind. I really think he could be a good value option at 6.1 million. I know this is a game week 4 video. I'd probably be a little bit hesitant bringing him into my team before he plays Man City at the Etihad. But just in general, with the upcoming fixtures he's got, the fact he's nailed on, will probably play 90 minutes every game. That's something that I don't think you can say for João Pedro. So yeah, I really like him as an option. And yeah, on the same token, I really like Mbumo as well. 7 million, I personally prefer him to Wissa because he's on penalties, he's on free kicks, he starts every game, he plays 90 minutes. That's just everything I want in an FPL asset, right? That's all the boxes ticked. He's on the pitch for every minute that's available. He takes the penalties and free kicks. He's just got every route available to him to score goals and get assists. He is just Brentford's talisman and best player. And yeah, the fixtures for Brentford are really good, like I just said through Wissa. And he is a proven Premier League returner as well. 22 starts last season, 9 goals, 7 assists, so 16 attacking returns from 22 starts last season. Obviously spent a bit of time out with injury. And this season, 3 starts, 3 goals. What more could you want, from a 7 million asset? I think Mbumo's looking really good. And at least from game week 5 onwards, obviously similar to Wissa, I think he should be in everyone's eyes, if that's the right way to say it. A couple more players I wanted to go through. I spoke a bit about Andy Robertson at the start of the video as well, especially considering his Fantasy Football Hub expected points total is actually above Trent's for game week 4. I just think he's a really good option. And as I said, last season, he put up better underlying data. So that expected returns per 90 total was better than Trent. And I would say, similar to what I said earlier, given recent events, Trent throwing a little bit of a hissy fit when he got subbed, that could potentially mean Robertson is slightly favoured by Slot. And I just think he offers the same kind of points upside as Trent does for a whole million less. We forget that Slot is, a different kind of manager to Klopp. And last season, I would definitely say when both Robertson and Trent were in the team, Robertson was kind of sitting back a bit more and they were defending with a back 3 with Trent pushing on. But this season, it looks to be a bit different. Robertson playing equally as attacking as Trent is in terms of his positional play. And also he's taking more corners than Trent is. So I think the stars are aligning for Robertson to be a really good FPL asset. And it's 6 million. He's not conceded a goal yet, putting up some decent underlying attacking data. He's not necessarily got a return yet, but I think they will come, and so will the clean sheets as well. Liverpool looking really solid defensively, and Robertson looking like a really good asset. And finally, I've been banging on about the 5 to 5.5 million midfielder price category since pre-season, basically, because I've always felt that you should pick a player from this price category because one will always emerge it would have always happened that one would emerge as the sort of best option. And right now, that's looking to be Semenyo. I think he's gone up to 5.6 million now, but I'm still classing him as a 5.5 million mid. I think he's proving to be that kind of Bournemouth most dangerous player / talisman now Solanke's gone. Yeah, he's putting up some great underlying numbers. I think he's had the most shots now of any player in the Premier League. Overtook Eze in game week 3 to get there. 3 attacking returns from 3 starts. 0.82 expected returns per 90 is... I know it's only 3 games, right? But that is an elite level of performance. And yeah, Chelsea up first in game week 4. Then he's got Liverpool. But a 5.5 million midfielder, you wouldn't be too worried about benching them if they have a tough fixture. And I wouldn't completely rule out Semenyo being able to score against Liverpool. And then it's Southampton after that. I would say, apart from the Liverpool game, those are good fixtures. And again, I wouldn't be too worried if I did have to start him against Liverpool. I would also just ask one question about Semenyo as well. I don't think anyone knows the answers to who is the Bournemouth designated penalty taker now Solanke's left. But given he's proving to be that kind of talismanic best player role that Solanke filled before, I'd ask the question, could Semenyo take Bournemouth penalty? All right, and that's the end of the video. I usually do one of these like once a week before the game week begins. But I thought it would be useful just to get this kind of data in your mind before the international break, well, during the international break anyway. And if things change, I'll make an updated version of this video later on. But I think knowing, you know, the top players for expected points, what the clean sheet sort of, you know, forecasts are looking like, etc., is really helpful because not only, you know, does it help you decide your transfers, but maybe if you're on your wildcard as well. I have made previous wildcard drafts, but, you know, whatever your plan is for the game week, knowing the expected performance of players for a particular game week is really useful, isn't it? So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave me a like rating. Let me know in the comments if you've got any questions for me. I'll do my best to get back to them. And yeah, if you enjoyed the video and want to see more from me, you can subscribe to the Golden Goal channel. I think I'm pointing to it. Should be just there on your screen. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you in my next video.